he had forced Canada into another submission. He delayed the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge and demanded changes to an agreement that had already been negotiated. When a new deal was finally announced, many headlines made it sound like Trump had won 50% of the bridge's profits. It appeared to be a major victory for Washington and a setback for Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. The agreement was portrayed as another example of Canada giving in. But once people started examining the details, the entire story began to look very different. According to several reports, the financial impact on Canada could actually be very small. The reason is simple. The bridge must first recover the billions of dollars spent on construction before meaningful profits even exist to be shared. If that assessment is correct, then this agreement was not about giving away billions of dollars. It was about getting the bridge open, restoring trade, and allowing businesses on both sides of the border to move forward. The Gordie Howe International Bridge, one of the most important infrastructure projects between Canada and the United States, is finally expected to open on July 27th, if everything goes according to plan. The Canadian-funded $6.4 billion bridge will connect Windsor, Ontario, and Detroit, Michigan, creating a major new trade corridor between the two countries. The United States agreed to allow the bridge to open after reaching a new agreement with Canada. Under the deal, 50% of the bridge's profits will go to a U.S. Economic Development Fund for 15 years after the bridge begins operations. However, experts point out that the key word is profits. The agreement does not say revenue or total toll collections. It specifically refers to profits, which means major earnings may not exist until construction costs are recovered. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens said the agreement should be viewed differently than the headlines suggest. He explained that the deal may actually represent a low-risk political victory for Donald Trump, while having a very limited financial cost for Canada. Dilkens argued that during the first 15 years, and possibly even longer, most toll revenue will likely go toward covering the massive cost of building the bridge. He explained that this was already part of the original arrangement between Canada and Michigan, where toll revenues were expected to recover construction expenses before any long-term profits were divided. According to Dilkens, if there are very little profits available during the early years, then the amount transferred to the U.S. Development Fund would also be very small. The story becomes even more interesting when looking at how the dispute started. The Gordie Howe Bridge was supposed to open months earlier. Canada had financed the project, construction was completed, and communities on both sides of the border were preparing for a major new trade route. But the opening was delayed after the Trump administration requested changes before allowing the bridge to begin operations. Reports also raise questions about the influence of the Ambassador Bridge, the existing crossing between Windsor and Detroit. The privately owned bridge has controlled a large share of commercial traffic between the two countries for decades.
At first glance, the agreement appeared to show Canada making another major concession. The United States would receive 50% of the bridge's profits for 15 years, creating the impression that Donald Trump had forced Canada into giving up something valuable. However, analysts say the reality is much more complicated. The key word in the agreement is profits, not revenue or total toll collections. The bridge is not expected to generate large profits immediately because the first priority is recovering the billions of dollars spent on construction. According to experts, this was already part of the original plan. Toll revenues were always expected to cover the construction costs before meaningful profits could be shared. If that happens, Trump may be able to present the agreement as a political victory, while the actual financial impact on Canada remains very limited. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens explained that the agreement should not be judged only by the headlines surrounding it. He said the most important outcome is that the Gordie Howe International Bridge will finally open and begin serving businesses, workers, and communities on both sides of the border. Dilkens believes the bridge could eventually take a large percentage of the traffic currently crossing through the Ambassador Bridge.
However, he explained that the exact amount of traffic it will attract will only become clear after the bridge opens and companies begin choosing their preferred routes. The Gordie Howe Bridge is expected to transform transportation between Canada and the United States because of its modern design and direct highway connection. According to Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins, the bridge will create a much smoother crossing experience for trucks and commercial vehicles across the border. He explained that drivers traveling from Canada's Highway 401 will be able to connect directly to Interstate 75 in the United States. This will reduce delays, save time, and lower transportation costs for companies that depend on fast and reliable movement of goods across the border.
Another controversial part of the agreement involves the United States receiving a consultation role on future toll changes greater than 10% in either direction. Some critics questioned why Washington would have any influence over a Canadian-funded bridge. However, Drew Dilkins argued that this provision has very little practical impact. He explained that large toll increases are already unusual in bridge operations, meaning this requirement creates almost no real risk for Canada. According to him, it gives Trump another opportunity to claim a political victory without significantly changing how the bridge will operate.
The political side of this agreement may be just as important as the financial details. Politics is often about the story leaders tell, not only the numbers behind the deal. Donald Trump can tell his supporters that he pressured Canada and secured another concession. Meanwhile, Canada can argue that it achieved its main objective, opening a bridge that it financed and built, restoring trade, and providing businesses with a faster route between the two countries. In this case, both governments may be able to claim success, even though the reality behind the agreement is more complicated.
But there is another part of this story that has attracted attention. The Ambassador Bridge is not just a competitor. It is a privately owned crossing that has controlled one of the busiest commercial trade routes in North America for decades. Reports have suggested that the bridge's owners had a financial interest in delaying the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge because new competition could threaten their position and reduce their control over a highly profitable route on a highly profitable route. If those reports are accurate, then the biggest question may not be about the 50% profit-sharing agreement. The bigger question is who influenced the delay and why the opening of the new bridge became such a political battle.
The Gordie Howe International Bridge is not just another infrastructure project. It is one of the most important trade connections between Canada and the United States. Every day, billions of dollars worth of goods move across the border, and industries such as automotive manufacturing depend on reliable transportation routes. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins described the bridge as one of the most technologically advanced land crossings between the two countries. He explained that the new bridge will improve efficiency, reduce travel times, and create a faster connection for freight moving between Windsor and Detroit. For Canadian workers and businesses, simply opening the Gordie Howe Bridge has enormous value. The automotive industry in Windsor and Detroit depends on just-in-time deliveries, where even small delays can create major problems for manufacturers. According to Drew Dilkins, the new bridge will provide the smoothest way to cross the border because of its direct highway-to-highway connection. Instead of dealing with traffic lights and congestion near the Ambassador Bridge, trucks will have a faster and more efficient route, saving companies both time. The opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge could also change the balance of power between the two border crossings. For years, the Ambassador Bridge controlled a large share of commercial traffic between Canada and the United States. The new bridge will introduce competition and give businesses another option for moving goods across the border. Experts believe that having multiple crossings will make the trade network more reliable and reduce the risks caused by depending on a single major route.
Whether you support Mark Carney's approach or not, this agreement represents a different style of negotiation. If analysts are correct that the early profit-sharing arrangement will have limited financial impact because construction costs must be recovered first, then Canada may have achieved its main goal. The bridge will open, trade will continue, and businesses will gain the certainty they have been waiting for. At the same time, Donald Trump can present the agreement as another political achievement to his supporters. The bigger story may not be who won on paper. The real question is who had the most influence behind the scenes and what caused the delays before the bridge finally opened. The agreement shows how modern political negotiations are often about both economics and public perception. One side can claim a political victory, while the other side can secure its long-term interests. The true impact of this deal will become clearer after the bridge begins operating and the financial numbers become available. The Gordie Howe International Bridge represents a major moment for trade between Canada and the United States. After years of planning, delays, and political disputes, the focus is finally shifting from negotiations to results. If the bridge opens as planned on July 27th, it will begin serving the businesses, workers, and communities it was designed to help. Only time will show whether this agreement was a major concession or a carefully calculated negotiation by Canada. If you found this analysis interesting, make sure to subscribe for more stories about politics, economics, and global events. Let us know in the comments, was this a smart negotiation by Canada, or did Canada make too many concessions to get the bridge opened?